The horns sounded at dawn. They echoed across the valley, long and steady, not in panic, but in ritual. Soldiers straightened their armor, banners were raised. Kings stood beneath silk canopies and waited for the moment everyone had been promised since childhood. The sky was already dark. Clouds hung low and unmoving, like they were holding their breath. At the far end of the plain, beyond the broken hills, a black shape rested on the horizon, the place where the Demon King was said to emerge. Everything was ready, everything except the hero. At first, no one noticed. The generals checked their watches, priests whispered prayers, messengers rode back and forth, convinced the delay was part of some greater plan. After all, the hero had never failed to appear before, not once in recorded history. A few minutes passed, then an hour. The Demon King did not advance. He waited too, patient in a way that felt unsettling, as if he understood something the world did not. By midday, murmurs spread through the ranks. Perhaps he comes from another direction. Perhaps this battle is different. Perhaps we were never meant to see him arrive. The kings did not speak. They stared toward the empty sky where a figure should have descended in light. By sunset, the truth became impossible to ignore. The hero was not coming. No thunder answered the horns. No divine sign split the clouds. Only the wind moved, brushing across the plain like a question with no reply. That night, the armies made camp. And for the first time in centuries, humanity went to sleep without knowing who would save them in the morning. Morning came without answers. The armies remained where they were, tents stretching across the plain like a frozen sea. No commands were given. No retreat was ordered. Everyone believed the hero might still arrive if they waited just a little longer. Waiting had always worked before. In the nearby cities, life continued carefully. Shops opened late. Children were kept indoors. Bells rang, not for alarm, but to remind people that hope was still expected of them. "He has never abandoned us," the priest said. "This is only a pause," the kings told their councils, so the world paused. Days passed in small, uneasy pieces. Smoke began to rise from distant villages, thin and dark against the sky. Refugees arrived with burned hands and tired eyes. They spoke of monsters moving freely, of walls that fell without warning. Still, the armies did not march. Without the hero, no one knew how to begin a war. The Demon King's shadow crept forward, slow and unchallenged as if testing the ground. No divine barrier pushed it back. No light answered the darkness. By the seventh day, people stopped asking when the hero would come. They began asking, what if he doesn't? And no one had a prayer for that question. Elric Vane noticed the silence before anyone else did. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of repetition. He worked in the Royal Archive, a stone building tucked far from the capital's noise. While others watched the roads for signs of the hero, Elric turned his eyes to the past. He opened old records, older than the oldest living priest. Every great war ended the same way. Different kings, different monsters, different names carved into stone, but always the same final line. Balance was restored. Elric frowned at the words. He had copied them himself many times before, never questioning them. Now they felt unfinished. He laid the books side by side and noticed something small: the dates. Every time the Demon King was defeated, the world seemed to forget everything that came right before it. New inventions vanished from records. Political disputes resolved themselves without explanation. Borders returned to familiar shapes, even when wars had reshaped them. History didn't move forward. It circled. Elric closed the final book and leaned back in his chair. "What if the hero isn't late?" he murmured to the empty room. "What if he's tired?" Outside the archive, a distant horn sounded, not the call of victory, but the signal that another town had fallen. Elric reached for fresh parchment. For the first time, he began writing a history that did not assume the hero would save the ending. Elric left the archive before dawn. The capital was quiet in the early hours, the kind of quiet that came before people admitted something was wrong. He walked past fountains, plazas, and wide stone steps, leading to monuments raised after every great victory. The hero stood in all of them, sword raised, cloak frozen in stone, face calm and unreadable. Elric stopped at the oldest statue, its edges worn smooth by centuries of wind and hands seeking comfort. At the base, a single line was carved: "The world was saved." He moved to the next one. Different year, same words. Another statue, another victory. Same pose, same calm expression, same ending. Elric felt a slow chill settle in his chest. No statue showed the aftermath. No monument spoke of rebuilding, of loss, of change. The world was always depicted as already whole, already healed, as if nothing important had happened at all. Elric turned away from the statues and understood something simple and unsettling. The hero always ended the story at the same point. Back in the archive, Elric searched places no one visited anymore. Behind a false shelf, hidden beneath cracked flooring, he found a thin journal bound in plain leather. No royal seal, no priestly mark, just a name written inside, faded but legible. For the next hero. Elric's breath slowed as he read. The journal did not praise victory. It did not speak of glory. It spoke of exhaustion. "I have slain the Demon King again," one entry read. "The world breathes easily, too easily." Another page followed. "They do not remember what was lost. Neither do I at first, but each time the forgetting comes faster." The final entry was short. "If I ever refuse, they will call me a traitor. But if I return again, they will never grow." Elric closed the journal with trembling hands. The hero had not disappeared. He had left a warning, and somewhere beyond the reach of prophecy, he was still alive, choosing silence over salvation. The road led Elric away from known routes, past the places marked on maps, past shrines and warning stones, beyond where prophecy was usually spoken out loud. There, he found a village without banners, no hero statue, no prayers carved into doorframes, just fields, wind, and people who looked up from their work when he passed, curious but unafraid. An old woman offered him water. A child asked if he was lost. No one asked about the Demon King. At the edge of the village stood a man repairing a fence. His movements were slow, careful. One sleeve hung empty at his side. Elric felt something settle in his chest. The man looked up, met his eyes, and smiled faintly, like someone who had been expecting a question for a long time. They spoke without ceremony, no revelation, no thunder, just words exchanged over a simple meal. "Yes," the man said calmly when Elric finally asked. "I am the hero." He did not sound proud or ashamed, just tired. The sword was gone, the armor too. The man wore plain clothes and smelled of earth and wood. His missing arm ended above the elbow, healed long ago. "I thought you would come sooner," the hero said. "A historian always does." Elric asked the question everyone else would have shouted. "Why didn't you fight?" The hero looked toward the fields where villagers worked together, arguing softly about nothing important, "Because I finally understood what happens when I win." The hero spoke slowly, as if choosing words he had practiced for years. "The first time," he said, "I believed the prophecy. I believed saving the world meant ending the battle." He described the Demon King's fall, the light, the relief, the way wounds healed faster than they should have. "And then," he continued, "the world became comfortable. Too comfortable. The dead were remembered less vividly. The fear faded too neatly. People stopped asking how close they had come to extinction." The second time, the hero said, "I noticed something missing." The third time, more was gone. By the fourth, he realized the truth. Each victory did not heal the world. It smoothed it, filed down the sharp edges of change, erased the lessons that hurt too much to keep. "When I strike the final blow," the hero said quietly, "the world forgets how to stand on its own." Elric felt the weight of the words settle slowly, like dust. The hero looked at his missing arm. "I lost this trying to delay the ending once. I thought maybe if the victory wasn't perfect, the world would remember. It didn't. So this time," he said, "I chose not to finish the story for them." Outside, the wind passed through the fields. The village continued its ordinary life, unaware of the weight resting nearby. "The Demon King will advance," the hero said. "People will suffer." "Yes," Elric whispered. "But when it ends," the hero continued, "it will be their ending, not mine." Elric understood then why the hero had hidden himself, not out of fear, but out of restraint. News travels even when heroes do not. The Demon King's forces pushed forward, slowly but without hesitation. Roads fell silent, watchtowers burned. The shape of the world began to change, not all at once, but in small, undeniable ways. What surprised Elric most was not the destruction. It was the response. Villages sent messengers to one another instead of praying. Cities closed gates and planned escapes instead of waiting for signs. No one spoke of destiny. They spoke of supplies. The world was frightened, but it was finally moving. The capital did not accept this movement. Crowds gathered beneath the statues of the hero, shouting his name like a spell. Priests raised their voices. Kings issued proclamations. The hero must return, they declared. Refusal is betrayal. Elric heard the word traitor whispered more often than savior. Bounties were offered. Orders were sent. The search began, not for answers, but for obedience. Somewhere beyond the hills, the hero continued tending his fields. The village felt the war before it saw it. Refugees arrived quietly, carrying children who had learned too early how to be silent. The hero gave them shelter without ceremony. He taught them how to repair roofs, how to sharpen tools, how to leave when staying became dangerous. At night, Elric noticed the hero awake long after others slept. "You could end this," Elric said once. "Yes," the hero replied, "and undo everything they're learning." The weight of that choice did not look heroic. It looked heavy. They came at dawn, not soldiers, saints, white banners, polished armor, voices trained to sound merciful. They spoke of duty, of balance, of the natural order. They called the hero by a title he no longer used. "You were chosen," they said. "You do not get to refuse." The hero listened politely. Then he said, "Neither do they get to stay children forever." The saints left without blessing the ground. That night, the village began to pack. Far from prophecy, a small city held its ground. There was no hero, no sign in the sky, only people who had decided not to run. The fight was messy, fearful, incomplete. They won by inches. No songs were written, no statues raised, but the city stood the next morning, changed, scarred, and awake. More battles followed. Some were lost. This time, the dead remained dead. Mothers grieved longer than stories allowed. Names were remembered instead of erased. Elric realized something painful and honest. For the first time, loss meant something. And because it meant something, people fought harder not to repeat it. Children began training, not as chosen ones, but as citizens. They learned that strength came in groups, not miracles. That courage was not a single figure arriving at the last moment. They did not wait for prophecy. They planned. The hero watched them from a distance, saying nothing. One evening, no horns sounded. Not because the danger was gone, but because people no longer expected someone else to answer. Elric looked at the hero and saw relief mixed with sorrow. "They don't need me anymore," Elric said. The hero nodded. That was always the goal. For the first time since the Demon King rose, the world did not call for its savior. It prepared itself instead. The final march did not feel final. There were no banners announcing destiny, no prophecy repeated to steady shaking hands. People gathered because the Demon King was there, and because turning away would end everything they had begun to build. They fought together. Some led, some followed. No one waited for a single figure to step forward and make it simple. The hero did not join them. He watched from a distant hill, seated on the ground, his remaining hand resting in the dirt. The battle lasted longer than any before it. There was no perfect moment, no single blow that decided everything. The Demon King weakened not from fate, but from exhaustion, pressed by thousands who refused to retreat. When he finally fell, the sky did not change. No light broke through the clouds. No voice declared balance restored. The world remained exactly as it was, burned, broken, and real. People waited. They expected the familiar feeling, the soft return, the gentle forgetting. It never came. Wounds remained. Cities stayed ruined. The dead were mourned without interruption. And yet, something else stayed too. Memory. The world did not smooth itself over. It continued. The hero did not return to the capital. He lived only a short while longer, long enough to see roads repaired by those who once waited. Long enough to hear children argue about how the battle actually happened. He died in the village, without ceremony. No one carved his name into stone, and that was how he wanted it. Years passed. The capital debated building one final monument. A hero who refused salvation did not fit neatly into marble. In the end, they built nothing. Instead, they recorded history, messy, uncertain, unfinished. Elric finished his work late in life. He wrote of battles lost and won, of fear without miracles, of growth without guidance. His final sentence was simple. The greatest hero was the one who taught us to stand alone. There was no ending feast. The world continued to struggle. It argued. It failed. It learned. And for the first time, history moved forward without waiting for permission.